what that was on. That was good. Now there's a safety tip for later when we're doing when we're doing the wax melting, is to remember to turn off. Well, it didn't smoke, so that's good. The fire extinguisher didn't go off. So, welcome back to Floral Art Online and Floral Art in the Hunter Valley. Today we're going to work with wax, and as you would have heard from that intro, I'll leave it in as a blooper. I did leave the hot plate on and I can smell it now. So just be wary of working with wax. I did ask you to bring a few things with you, but that we'll have a look at when we start to do the workshop. But what I wanted to show you first of all is a couple of designs that use wax as part of the element of the structure, because obviously it's not plant material, so you don't want it to be overwhelming. Now, I learnt this technique more than 10 years ago, and this is my very first attempt at what we're going to be doing today. So you make the waterproof container and a base, and there is a bit of metal there that attaches to make it stand, and I need to seal that to hold it, but it gives you an interesting structure. It's obviously waterproof because it's wax, so you can put the water inside there. It has over the years been in storage, and so it's melted into an interesting shape, but that's just basically, it was leftover dinner candles that were melted down as we're going to do it, and then you'll see how we actually make the structure for that. So I just thought I'd share with you how long they last and that they are a useful structure. So what we're going to do is make the cones today and the base. Now I've put out stuff so you can do the base because I wanted to do the actual arrangement in something higher so that you could see it. I've made my base round, obviously, but the cones are the cone shape. So what I need to do first of all, it worked, is release the base and just make sure it works, which it does. Magic. And so the next thing we have to do with these, and I'll show you how we do these when we do the workshop, because they take a little bit of time to dry, so we're going to have to pace ourselves in what we do. But it's basically you make a paper cone and then you coat it multiple times in the wax, making sure that you seal the end. What we need to do now is to put the wires through the ends there so that it will stand up on the stand itself. So in your workshop packs you've got 3 wires that you just need to bind together, and on the workshop table there's the masking tape, and I think masking tape is probably going to be better for you to use for this. What you do need to do though, which I haven't done, is leave a little bit of the metal exposed, because we're going to have to heat that to push it into the base. Okay, but for the first pass we'll put it into the cone, and it's just a matter of pushing it into the base, and that obviously is going to break the seal that you've got there, so you have to reseal that base. She said she put a lot of wax in the base of this one. Now you should see it come through on the inside, you can see it there. You don't need to leave too much, because we just want it to be a solid hold for that container. So we need to put some wax on the inside. That will reseal that base and also hold the wire in place. We need some on the outside as well. I don't think she's well enough. She's busy and yeah. And so we just heat the base a bit, and then just push it into the wax, into your wax base. Which is where your floral art fingers will be good, because otherwise you'll burn your fingers. Pushing it in.
I hurt my foot the other day with the hot burger.
How, Cindy?
But I would be in class.
So this part of it you won't get to until sort of fairly late in the morning. It is fiddly, and sometimes it's better to leave the wax till it's almost reset again before you use it, because it's a little bit thicker and it sets a bit faster. So we might. So what I'm going to do is the other two to go in this stand, and then I'm going to leave them and show you the other way you can use wax, because I'm not confident that that's going to stay. There we go. And as we do the workshop, you'll get a better sense of how this works. Doing is better than watching. Now, I might leave that to dry. What we're going to work with, just make sure I get that the right way, is this. And this is a really interesting method to use. That's not going to hold. It's too heavy. I'll have to hold it. Oh, no, I'll hold it. So it's basically just from the op shop, just any kind of frame at all with a base. This one's actually got some decoupage serviettes underneath it, so there's a little bit of colour coming through. Doesn't really matter, you know, you can work with the colour. But basically what this is toilet paper.
Oh, yeah.
Now I've tried it with many other forms of light paper. I've tried it with tissues, I've tried it with serviettes, all of that. Toilet paper still is the best, because it soaks up enough, probably too much of the wax, so you'll see I'll have to drain some of it before I do it. But it's basically, the system is just to melt the wax, obviously, dip your toilet paper in, and then just push it onto the backing. And what I have done, which you mightn't be able to see, is I've actually pushed holes through and I've put the paper covered wire in, because the other thing that we're going to do with this one, when I start to put the plant material in, is that we don't need a water source. What I'm going to use is plant material that has been hydrating for 24 hours, and I'm going to show you how you, because that then will be full of water, how you seal the end with the wax so that you don't have to have a water source for the duration of a competition. And the other thing I'll use with it is the succulents, because they don't need a water source, so they're going to last. So, you know, if you wanted something a little bit special to put up somewhere for a little bit of time, this is an interesting exercise to do. It doesn't cost you much, you know, you've probably got toilet paper around that you can use. So it's just a matter of getting the wax and your plant material. Move these wicks out of here. Well, what I did with this one is I just initially used 2 squares to cover the back, and then I used single square to fill the holes and to highlight it a bit and to give it a bit more texture. So it obviously gives it lots of texture. People don't know what it is. You can have it coming over the edge of the container. Now I made this yesterday. I decided I wasn't going to do it on Thursday in the heat, and I made it yesterday, and it's quite solid now.
What's on the back of the actual thing where you've got the walls? Oh, right, so...
Yeah, so just the baseboard that came with the frame.
What do you punch in the holes with?
I actually used a metal skewer, so a metal cake tester. Yeah, just to make the hole. Yeah, and then just push the wire through. That's smoking now, so we'll turn it off. And it's simply dip it in.
2-ply or 3-ply?
This is 3. Thank you. Technical question. And then it's just, you just push it on.
Yeah, make sure. Build up the layers.
Yeah. So I'll just do a couple of those so we can get started on the workshop, because it does take a while to make the cones. But it's as simple as that. I would recommend though that you drain each piece before you put it on.
Yeah.
And that when you have done it, that you leave it for at least 12 hours to really and truly set. Yeah. So that's...
And you wait till it's set before you put the holes in to put the wire.
Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. All right. So in terms of our plant material now, I determined that I was going to go horizontally, and I want to use the Asiatic lilies, the day lilies, because they're a nice big showy flower, and I don't want to use too many. So 3 come in the bunch, so I'm going to use the 3. There's probably buds and things off to the sides that we'll discard. You could use them in addition to the placements that you're doing. But the method for sealing the base is pretty straightforward, as you would expect. Now you can do this with most of the lilies, not tulips, because they, although you can hydrate them, they're very soft, and the water that they take up, they use, because they continue to grow after they're cut. They use up everything, and so they're very water thirsty, so you can't really hydrate them enough to last for any length of time without a water source. So what I'm doing, this first placement is across the top there. I just want to decide how I'm going to place it, because I will have to trim some of the excess branches off. So that one has to come off. I don't mind it extending over the edge. This one that's not open, it will, both of these will open, and so I want to have them extending over the frame so that they become the features, not so much the frame. They're not contained, it's not contained in the design itself, and so I need to probably take it off about there. So for waxing, a clean cut. You can tell that it's fully hydrated because I can see that there's water all through it, and it's just dipping it in, let it dry. Not too, I wouldn't suggest a big coating because it'll peel off.
Yeah, and plus it would spoil the
Yep.
visual effect.
Yep. And so, because I've got those wires already in, I'll just slide it through. And then on the back, just a matter of twisting the wires. So that's our first placement. And you can see how simple it is and how little the plant material you use. You could actually leave it just as one and have maybe some greenery on these other placements. But I would like to use up the other
What if you had the
lilies.
just going in reverse? Could that happen?
When I do these placements, the flowers will be at this end. Yeah, just to give you that movement, and then I'm going to add some greenery into it that is the idea of movement around it, because you've got such an uneven texture as the background, and these are smooth. We need to bring our eyes, just soften it a little bit. But even because that's been broken when it's been in the bunch, if I give that a clean cut, I can still use it. And I'm actually, I think I've probably shown you before, but just to take the stamens off so that they don't stain everything, including your fingers. So we've got two sizes. So you guys can decide. So do we have the small one? Or no, this one, I should say.
Could you have them both?
Could, but I'm going to put some greenery in. So we could do it that way, but that's...
Yeah, it looks better with one.
Yeah, so we could do it that way.
I like the big one.
Yeah, the big one I like too.
And I think that there's too much weight.
On that side, yeah, no, you need it the other way.
Need it the other way?
Yeah, I reckon.
Yep. So
That's more natural.
once again, it's all about deciding trial and error, and that's why having these wires in place is good, because I can try it out.
Yeah.
But the problem with that now is that it's only held in one place. So what we have to ensure is that there is something else that's going to hold it in place. So when I put the greenery in, the greenery will go through both, so I better leave that open a little bit, and that will help to hold it in place, because you should always have at least 2 hold points and sometimes 3 in a design, just to ensure the physics is working to help it, to keep it in place. So I now have got a choice. So we have money tree, and I picked the ones that have got a little bit of movement to them to make it more interesting. And my plan was to have it so that it went the opposite way to the way that the bud was, so it doesn't cover the end, because you still want the judges or people to see how you've managed to seal that end, but it masks it a little bit and gives it the movement, means that your eye moves through to the next part of the design. Doesn't look like they're all just blobs of placement. And the same with that one, is that I was going to have that come up through there. Now my concern with that is, for me, it's starting to get too busy.
Yeah.
There's too much in it.
Too much, isn't it?
There is. And so do we have just the one at the top? Do we have just the one at the bottom?
I reckon go diagonal with that.
Yeah, I was thinking it would look interesting diagonal. Could it start at that way and come round the other way?
So start at the
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, with the stem the other side. Can it have 2 stems together or not?
It can, but I just think it's going to start to get too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you just need the one.
So the alternate, if we don't use that one, is Ripsalis, which was my first choice, but my poor old plant suffered, so I haven't got really long pieces. But in terms of it being lighter and more movement, so it still needs the bigger.
Yeah, I think the other one looks better. It's got more
Yep.
impact.
Yep. So that's the stuff you need to be looking at. So we'll
I
go
like the curvy one. Yeah, I like that piece.
that one.
Yeah, I think so.
What we want to do is make sure it's integrated. What I can do, in fact, I'll just have a short one on the bottom, because I just want that other.
Yeah, it needs the other one.
Yeah. So what I'm looking at here is that I'm just a bit concerned about the space and also about the texture. And that the colours are quite strong, and we need something to rest our eyes. So you need some sort of transitional material. The white is very dominant. The boldness of the plant material hits you in the eye. So you need, it is better, I shouldn't say we need, it is better to have something that gives your eye a chance to rest. And because we can have this as fine as we like, and we can tuck it into some of the holes. But once again, it's about not doing what we call the smarty placement, so it's not just blob, 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 that you try and incorporate it into what you've got. So because I've been doing this backwards, I might play with that a little bit, but you can see the effect that it has just by, and in some ways it makes it a little bit more natural. So it just looks like you've grabbed something.
I put a little bit on that bottom branch to that leaf. That little.
Yeah, I'm going to have a look at it and have a play.
Yeah, we want more balance.
But that, you know, basically, for a system of just using a purchased frame of any description, you can see on the back of this that it's paper, so the wax has come through a little bit, but you know, no one's going to see that, so it doesn't matter.
You can always cover that later.
Yeah, you can always cover that if you want to. I'll trim off the wires at the back so it's nice and neat. But nice quick design using those techniques of the wax and the toilet paper as the backing to give you texture and height, and you know, obviously you could build it up in certain areas, and you could make it into a and I've seen it made into almost a whirlpool, so that they have the concentric circles and then something in the middle, so you do your focal area in the middle, or just have a single flower in the middle, and then you have lots of little flowers around the outside. So just a whole range of things that you can do once you've got that really textural but solid backing, and so simple to do. And then the sealing the ends means that these lilies will probably, as it stands, the lilies will probably last, depending on the temperature, you could probably have it on display for a week to 10 days before the lilies would start to deteriorate. These other ones will open a little bit more, probably not all the way, because they'll need a little bit more material. So when they do open, obviously you'll get more of the smell, and you'll need to take the stamens out again, otherwise it's going to drop everywhere. But that's the idea of that one. Yeah, so you could have it that way.
I don't mind that actually.
Or you could have it that way. And so once again, it's about what your eye is comfortable seeing. So I just like the challenge of doing it horizontally, because I think it highlights the fact that you're using the plant material in a different way to the way you would if you were using the water sources, the test tubes or the vials and things like that. So it was a pillar candle holder.
Oh yes.
And all I've done is, these are the standard plastic bowls that florists use to put the oasis in, and I've just pushed that down onto the, so when I use it I have to remember that there's a hole there, and I can't just put the water straight in there. But you know, if you're using any other sort of, so the perlite or there's a wool product now that you can use instead of the floral foam, or the biodegradable floral foam, then it just sits in there and it just gives you that added bit of height. I've sprayed it obviously, and it changes colour, it changes its character whenever I need it, but it's a good solid base. The other thing that I can do with it, no, leave that one on, is I can have it round the other way. And it's got a bit of an angle on it. It's more obvious when it's this way around. But what that means is that I can put dried material, usually, is what I'm trying to think what I use in it, but usually dried material in there that will come out and comes out the sides, and then I can have a water source that just sits there, that is for the rest of it. So it's very good for a category called waterfall, where you have to have something that cascades over, because it gives that impression. And so it's important to think about your containers in terms of what you want to do with your plant material as well. That's very uneven today. Never mind. So we've ended up with a lovely twisted frame. I wanted it. I knew I wanted it like that. But it is a spiral form. So that's our base. So that will just sit in there like that. And then it's just a matter of deciding whether you want to put something around that base there to cover up the mechanics that you've done, or whether you just want something that comes there and falls out. So you could. I'm hoping that this will bend enough. Now all I'm doing with this, normally it has a bit of a drop, but because they're not quite long enough to have had the natural drop, I'm just massaging it with the heat of my hands into the shape that I want. So it may or may not work, but it doesn't matter. You'll get the idea anyway. So I'm putting that in first so it gives me the drop that I want. So because when I put the flowers in, I want to think about where my eye is going to be drawn. I don't want to just be drawn to this top here. I want it to incorporate, I want the stand to be part of what I'm doing. So I need it to come down. It's well, you know, it's part of that balance thing. It's about, you know, where is your eye drawn to first, and whether you're doing it for competition or just to have somewhere around. You just need to think about where am I looking first. I've broken that one. Never mind. And I will use a little bit of this. But I'm going to use it not on there, but around this section. What we need to think about too is the height. So our eyes are going to see this much. So if we go too high, it just comes out of balance. But we need to probably go that same height again, and then bring something down to make sure that it's all incorporated into what we're seeing physically. Obviously, these are sealed now, so I could actually put water in them. And if the wax was still soft inside, then that would seal it as well. And so they could be left as they are. What we try and do is not have everything at the same height when we're doing the placements, so that your eye can move around a little bit. Broke that one. Well, that'll be that one there. And so I've got low placements here. I've got to go up a little bit higher here to bridge that gap. It is. And so what I'll do is use that. So I still feel that it needs something around the base here.
Could you put you would put a bud down there? Oh yeah, that's what
I was looking for it.
That's right.
I was looking for it.
That's probably what I did too. Yes.
What you need to do is not have it facing up. So just make sure that it's either you've got it so that it comes down, so that you're looking.
Part of the drape.
It's part of the drape.
Yeah.
Not all the way down, because you can see that doesn't work. But just the hint of it going down is enough. Yeah. I knew I had it there somewhere. I just couldn't see it on the table.
Oh, even though we're going to keep working on it. No,
All right.
I'll wait till later. I thought we were
That's all right. So that conversation was a colleague known to me as Jack, but that's actually not his name. And so he doesn't call me Kim, he calls me Kay, and I call him Jack, but his name is actually Kevin, and he's Verna's husband. But
yeah, I think that makes a difference, having
yeah.
that there, doesn't it? Softens it up
It does, and then what you need to do is bring your eye up with that plant material, because at the moment we've got flowers, foliage, other filler. Nothing combines it except this flower down here and these up here. Nothing brings it together. So we need to have some, so even just the tiniest pieces just draped, so that it gives you the indication that it's all part of the same thing.
Plus it gives a softness.
Yeah, it softens the white of that wax. So did you all bring white candles?
I've got green ones.
That's good, because you'll see the difference.
I've got white, but I've only got 5.
You'll see the difference in terms of what those containers look like, and how, you know, if it's not a white one, how your eye is not immediately drawn to that particular part of the design. So obviously, if you're doing it for a reason rather than just for play, then you would choose the colour of the wax. You can colour wax, obviously, so the white ones are cheap. Get the white ones and then just colour them. I have seen it done with almost like a rainbow effect. So they put a few drops of the food colouring in and then just swirl it around and then make their things. But you've got to be fairly careful with that, because you're spooning it in and out all the time. It mixes up and it gets a bit ugly. So we still have this base that is not part of the top of the design. And the easiest thing to do, once again, is to tuck this inside. So just to give it, and to bring it up so that it looks like it's yeah, probably a little bit too thick there. But don't have it coming out too much of this base, because we still want that clean line moving up to the other part. And so what that does is combine the whole of the structure that you've got, so it all looks like it's a complete structure rather than the different parts of it. Other thing that you might be able to do, because this is still very dominant, the white, is have something that is white in there. So you might have some sisal fibre or some jute fibre, some string that you've pulled apart. And once again, if it was string and you pulled it apart, I would suggest that you throw it in the wax, so that you've got that same sort of colour coming through, and you can shape it so that you can fit it into there and have it as thick or as thin as you like. Yes, you could have little eggs in there as well.
Just stick it behind the end.
That's right. So the only other thing that, not as part of this, but it is a good thing to do for waxing, and you'll actually have to look at this to get the idea of it, is the pine cone. So I've given you a pine cone so you can have a play with it. This is one that I've just rolled in wax just the single time, and you can see how it changes it changes the texture, because if you look at an uncoated one, you can see that there's definitely a difference. Definitely a softening in what you're using. So if you wanted that form or that colour in your design, but you didn't want it as harsh as the raw pine cone, then just a light coating of wax is going to soften that for you in that way. So there we go. The next thing we're going to move on to is I'll pull the table out and get you started on the workshop, and you can start making your cones, because that's going to take a little bit of time. But thank you for your attendance and your attention and your suggestions today, and I'll finish off the rest of those designs so we can get some photos. I'm Kim Bailey, and this is Floral Art Online.